from 12:15 to 1:15. We'll have time for questions at the end. Obviously, oak wilt is something we all see and deal with daily. Seems like even at night, right? We're just thinking about it, and hopefully don't have too many nightmares about it as well. So Kevin is going to speak to us about the things he's been working on and share some of the current information on oak wilt. So Kevin Bell, thank you.
Thank you. Howdy, it's good to see all y'all. Just want to strongly encourage y'all to consider becoming members or renewing this year. This organization has really been kind of a lot on the hilltop within the industry for how proactive we are in trying to increase the amount of arborists out there, and just networking and peer respect amongst the industry. So it's an awesome thing. As far as unsung heroes, the entire leadership of this organization, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of effort put into it. So I want to give a shout out to the entire leadership. So my name is Kevin Belter. I'm a board certified master arborist. Been with this organization since day one. Today we're going to be looking at recommended improvements for increased efficacy of the Texas Oak Wilt Suppression Program. Real honored to have guys that work with me here. I want to give a shout out to Michael Jimenez. Stand up, Michael. He runs the entire pruning and removal section of my company, and next year he's going to be giving a run for the money for the guy who's been basically winning that dang contest for the last 10 years. So I'm psyched about that. Patrick Martin and Chris Shaw work with me. They work with me doing IPM, Integrated Pest Management. Predominantly 10 months out of the year, we're doing oak wilt treatment 7 days a week. So we're heavily invested in this. I've been doing this since like 2006. Okay, I was in the first group of Texas Oak Wilt certified arborists, and just like a sponge, trying to absorb anything and everything I could from predominantly Dr. Apple and the Texas Forest Service members. And then as I've been, doing this more and more, I've been making observations, basically following the scientific method here. Observing, questioning, coming up with hypotheses, making predictions, and then experimenting. So we're going to be looking over 21 points of where I see we can take forward the oak wilt suppression program and make it even more effective. So that's what we're going to be going over. There's a lot going on that maybe some of y'all don't know about. So, for example, it's unpublished, but Dr. Apple has done a study on the ArborJet oak wilt treatment system. Okay, and he did a 1-year study, and he came up with comparable results to what I believe is the most important oak wilt study that's ever been done so far in oak wilt, which is the macro infusion with Alamo, improving how effective that is. So when it really comes down to it, they named it Alamo, I believe, because it's like the last stand. The oak wilt's there, these people love their trees, they don't want them to die, and that treatment, he proved, can keep those trees alive for a long period of time. Okay, but within the last couple of years, he did this study on ArborJet, and it hasn't been published. But what I want to get across to you guys, not every bit of science that's been conducted in the industry is necessarily always published, and that doesn't make what was found out not true or any less true than as if it was published. So there's different levels, and I want to encourage you guys to kind of find the inner scientist in you, and maybe you're doing that a whole lot, or maybe you need a renewal in that, but we're all scientists and we all can contribute. And I think it's time that, you know, we as an industry, whether you're an arborist or Texas Forest Service agent, AgriLife or whatever, that we all have something to add and contribute and make this industry better. And so that's what I've been trying to do. Emmett, did you have a comment on that study I referenced? Emmett Munich with ArborJet.
Yeah, hey, so, Kevin, thank you is really what I have to say, because, being involved in Oakville, you know, I can't talk to somebody in Central Texas without that coming up. And in my position, I've kind of had to navigate politics of it and tiptoe around things. And Kevin, thank you for kind of bird dogging this thing, and I'm looking forward to what you're gonna get into here. And you're why I'm here today is because you called me a couple weeks ago and you said, hey, I'm talking at the San Antonio Arborist Association, we're having a luncheon, you should come. And so, I appreciate what you've been doing here, and what he's talking about is Dave Apple in Texas A&M installed an oak wilt study a few years ago to compare the ArborJet treatment method versus the macrofusion method. And despite my efforts to be involved in it, to help with install the treatments and things like that, I kept completely in the dark. And then when I would talk to Dave, he's like, oh yeah, we're doing it, we're getting some results. He just really kind of brushed off. And then the next thing I know, he said, oh yeah, we got results. You know, it looks comparable, but we can't publish it. So I'm like, well, why can't you publish it? And then like a year or two ago, he gave a presentation in Austin and presented his results in a PowerPoint.
Right.
And he sent the PowerPoint to me. He said, here's the PowerPoint with my data. Please don't use this data in any way to help you promote ArborJet in any way, shape, or form. And so I'm like, well, what, you know, where does this leave me? And so, Kevin, in what you've been doing, you know, with like public data requests or whatever you're doing through those pathways, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so, I mean, the reason why I'm bringing this up, and honestly, Jenny Jeswick up there in Minnesota, she had a grad student do a study, and they also affirmed to me that even though what they were looking at was the wounding component to macro versus the micro, okay, what happens with the wounding, they also told me, though it wasn't the focus of the study, they got comparable results. But what I'm getting at is I think it's really important that we be aware of the need for new scientific progress, and just kind of be excited about it, and want to see more and more activity happen. And how can we encourage that to happen? Asking questions. We might not come to the same conclusions, but it's that dialogue that's so critical to getting better results, finding closer to the truth, and honestly, I believe serving our customers too. One of the number one questions I always get asked is what's new? My customers always want to know what's new. So, you know, for example, one of the things that I've been doing, you know, I've observed that these Mexican white oaks that are right now being said to be highly resistant to oak wilt, okay? I've recognized that when I'm in an oak wilt center and I've got what I would consider an established, i.e. they're not needing to do significant watering or whatever, the root system is, you know, into the soil and established, there's a good chance that they're gonna graft and get this disease, okay? And so I've observed them dying. I've asked questions, what's causing them to die? Hypothesized, well, they got planted in an oak wilt center. Maybe they got it through rootgrass, right? And then I make a prediction. I'm gonna take a cutting off of this tree, and I normally take 5, and then I send them to a DNA lab. Okay, this lab is highly reputable according to American Society of Consulting Arborists, which in my opinion is an absolutely phenomenal organization backing up the tree care world. And Dayton Archer happens to be a member of ASCA. He's a registered consulting arborist. Awesome accomplishment, sir. And so I made predictions, and what am I finding? I'm finding they have oak wilt, and if I don't treat them with fungicide, they're probably going to die, or die to a degree that the customer just wants to cut them down because they're looking at a tree with 40 to 60% loss of canopy. So, that's kind of, one of the things I've been doing with this, scientific method in a whole lot of aspects. And that's why I got 21 points, because I've been looking at a lot of stuff. So the impetus of history. 1988 is where they kind of did a preliminary Texas oak wilt suppression project. And in 1992, basically when the actual Texas oak wilt suppression program, where they kind of finalized it. During that interim time period, they did science, and they believed they were going to achieve results, and they could perfect those results and very effectively help landowners in Texas manage this disease. Okay? So, this is spoken of to extensive length in the National Oak Wilt Symposium documents, if you will. This is the very first one. This is the one in 1992. So yeah, I actually have a copy of this. I have multiple copies of this, and I've done, I've read it multiple times. I do a lot of notes, and I'm constantly reflecting back to that one. This is the one from 2007, National Oak Wilt Symposium. Both of them happened here in Austin, Texas. Texas Forest Service and the ISA Texas chapter took the leadership on these meetings and invited the other 20 state experts. You have university people, U.S. Forest Service personnel, Department of Natural Resources, and key arborists throughout these states all came down to Texas, where they had the best of the best do presentations. Of course, Dr. Apple was highly involved in these and whatnot, and presented their information to one another, and the whole purpose of that was network, learn from each other, and see how can we help each other with this absolutely catastrophic act of God, devastating disease, right? I don't know what's going to happen. 2022 would be 15 years, so we had one in 92, one in 2007, 2007 plus 15 would be this next year. I'm hoping there's one. Not sure what's going to happen there, but my concern is obviously if we don't continue to have these networking events, there's a good chance that maybe we won't grow and progress as much, right? Because it's obviously foundational. So the impetus of the love of oaks in my fellow Texans. So when you get into a critical reflection on a program that started in 1992, it's like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I love the trees. I'm doing this because I love my clients. And I love our industry, and I believe we can continually improve. And it's going to be the same thing when you want to improve in basketball, or you want to improve in engineering, or whatever it is you want to improve on. You ask yourself, how can I do it better? What are the things that I was doing right? What are the things where I feel like maybe we can grow and expand and get better results? But one of the critical components is honesty and transparency with yourself. And so my entire website is the most comprehensive collection and commentary by a practitioner in oak wilt in the nation. And I invite you afterwards to continually go back and take a look at this stuff. And it's a heck of a lot of reading, a lot of crunching of science and documents, but I think it's going to get us a heck of a lot better results by doing this. So go into my website, which is basically a PowerPoint. I created my website not to increase sales for my business. I created my website to have a public, open dialogue with the experts in the nation and in this state to take what I've seen and observed and I believe can improve what we're doing to save trees and do it seriously. That's why I've invested so much time and so much money into this website. I've been doing this for a very long time, gathering this data, having these thoughts, trying to have verbal communication with people. And then I felt like this was the next step. So go to the oak wilt menu here, for example. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got 12 pages. The identifying the symptoms is actually 3 pages. And diagnostics is 2 pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read over the 21 points of improvement, and then we're going to go back over them with a little more detail. And as far as these 21 points, okay, those pages that I showed you on the menu are the arguments for the conclusion. And the 21 points is my conclusion. So, it's not all just presented just on that oak wilt management page. It's Number 1, establish a board consisting of TFS personnel, AgriLife personnel, A&M researchers, and Texas A&M Board of Regents rep, ISA Texas chapter personnel, BCMA, CA reps, municipal arborists, urban forester reps, and all of whom are committed to progress and results. Annual board meetings along with a written list of goals and a process for evaluation of those goals, and make that information available for public disclosure via open records request. 2, mandatory public constructive feedback. So on this management page, you scroll down to the menu and click recommended improvements for increased efficacy. All right, so 2, mandatory public constructive feedback form for all those who receive TFS personnel visit to their property for oak wilt after 1 year has passed from the time, and ongoing requests for feedback every 5 years from those who have received cost share support. An online submission form must be provided on texasoakwilt.org website for the remaining public. All constructive feedback must be made publicly accessible, avoiding the need for an open records request to be issued for those who wish to see the feedback provided regarding the Texas oak wilt suppression program. Protect use of TFS personnel time for more effective macro forest health tasks by directing all single property requests by the public to contact Texas oak wilt qualified arborists for first visit. Example, the new 2020 policy of the City of Austin. Change cost share allocation to a 50-50 ratio for trenching and infected spore producer identification and removal. 5, prioritize SP-centric scouting and eradication paradigm all year long above beetle wound-centric paradigm in public message campaign. Included with this must be a strong public message that emphasizes the frequent occurrence of natural wounding, which we have little ability to effectively mitigate other than SP removal prior to mat formation. Especially focus on increase of herbicide option for SP destruction from spring through the summer months. 7, we paint all year because fungal mats form all year. It only takes one. Update public message announcements that there is no safe time to prune, but properly applied paint works all year long, including spring. 8, public service message should explicitly state that all consumers should give due consideration to only hire contractors with an ISA certified arborist on staff to prune the same way they would choose a licensed electrician to perform dangerous and critical electrical work. 9, the entire unedited exposition of the document titled Pruning Guidelines for Prevention should be always and only and in its entirety recommended for community codification. Other human activities such as damaging trees with machinery, removing underbrush that is protecting trunks from deer rubs, having horses that crib on trees without protecting fencing, etc., are just as important actions to take as is pruning paint. 10. All Texas Oak Wilt Suppression Program protocol will assume that interconnected or grafted roots are at a minimum a common occurrence, and in many cases an almost guaranteed fact. 11. Non-cost share trenches, by definition, do not contain the disease, and therefore no TFS agent is allowed to spec out and recommend a no-cost share trench as a recommended suppression option without a requesting a waiver from the TFS Forest Health Director, within which substantive argument must be made that there is an extremely high probability that the disease will result in delaying or redirecting the disease for large oak populations for a decade or more. All NCS waivers must be made available to public access and must be included in post-suppression evaluations. 12, increase standard trench depth to 5 feet. Waiver form required for 4 feet if meets prerequisites for soil, topography, and tree size species. 13, fungicide application prohibited within 50 feet of the trench without a waiver. 14, requires selection of roguing option, either herbicide or uprooting all non-symptomatic trees within 50 feet of trench. Waiver form required and applicable if no oak wilt species within 50 feet on the healthy side of the trench. 15, begin trial studies of pasture improvement projects over oak wilt centers where landowner prefers that particular option over trenching, and as the standard approach in those occasions, trenching is not feasible. 16, PSCs to be conducted only of trenches at 5 and 10 years of age. Trenches younger than 5 years will only be visited and documented if a Texas Oak Wilt qualified arborist assesses that a cost share trench has failed. All PSCs must be made publicly accessible without need for recourse via open records request. 17, devise a public campaign message asking for the exclusion of the term resistant regarding white oak species and define tolerance in terms that address consumer concerns and that field observations are concerning and research forthcoming. 18, develop protocol for infected white oak species identification and treatment techniques and incorporate into the Texas Oak Wilt qualification program. 19, encourage planting only 1 or 2 oaks per every 5 trees installed, and that their location and spacing is intelligently selected. 20, make a prioritized list of needed research, such as silvicide trench only, silvicide and more shallow trench depths, true tolerance level of each white oak. Can bur oaks in Texas also form fungal mats? Do post oaks serve as conduits for interspecies root transference? And if so, how frequently? Exhaustive root grafting within various trench depths, widths, both intraspecies and interspecies. Revisit trench insert studies and continue the studies. Study fungicide soil drench alone and combined with macro injection. This is one of the most important ones. 21, in the absence of published research, field observation, intelligent and experienced judgments, and corresponding action is the modus operandi. This has all been presented to the heads of the Forest Service, okay? Shane Harrington, Texas Forest Service, has been extremely professional and interested in hearing what I have to say, okay? I've met with him, okay? He had this sent to all the people on the Texas Oak Wilt Suppression Program Advisory Committee. They've seen this list. Regarding this field observation, back in 2019, basically the white oak resistance level showed little noticeable impact and rarely died. Okay? I had a phone conversation with him sometime around the time I put my website together. Okay? He said, we need to look at this further, and I appreciate you bringing this up. Well, he told me is they had an intercommunication within the Forest Service staff. People like Dr. Apple and maybe retired Forest Service people he trusted and respected, could give some extremely trustworthy wisdom regarding the matter of especially the lacy oak, chinkapin oak, and the shin oak. Okay? After that conversation, they changed the website. They didn't put out a public service message, hey, everybody update your, Shavanoa Park, white oak information or anything, but they did change the website. Now they say they can die in large numbers. It's a pretty significant shift. That shift had nothing to do with any sort of inoculative study test. There is no published test to confirm that decision that he made. That decision he made was him knowing and trusting that his agents are good agents. They have wisdom, they've got knowledge, they've got experience. In trusting in them and what they have to say about this, he's going to better serve the Texas public. And I applaud him for that. We need to look at doing more of that. As far as, maybe people thinking a lot of this, this stuff might be anecdotal I'm talking about. It's not science-based, okay? Here's a USDA Forest Service Eastern Region Oak Wilt Suppression Program. This is a federal government, U.S. Forest Service. I'm going to touch on this real briefly because I'm probably using up a lot of my time. But these are the states right here that we're talking about in this region, okay? They have this real pretty graph thing, okay? And on this graph thing, you're going to see what they give money for. All right? They do trenching just like we do. They do trenching a little deeper than we do. They also, this is the herbicide section. They've got a total of cut, treat stumps, girdle. So they're using and giving money for cost share prevention of oak wilt in those states and incorporating herbicide in various different methods. inside the trench and with no trench, okay? Wisconsin is going to be published here real soon. And I know the researcher who did the 5-year study of 50 oak wilt centers stopped by herbicide only. Okay, I've spoken to her. This will get published here real soon. They're doing a whole heck of a lot up there. And, you know, U.S. Forest Service may be very interested in wanting to extend the same amount of effort and energy down here as they did up there. So looking at that, what can we do? Maybe I've done some things. Maybe they could look at that already. So going back to this this list here, okay, I'm just going to give brief comments on this stuff. Number one, really the most important thing on throughout this entire list, you can see me strongly advocating for a transparency on the program and its actions by our public officials so that we can kind of see what are they doing, why are they doing it, how's that working for us. And the whole goal there is to get better results. That's the only reason. Transparency is a good thing. So now I'm just gonna skip 2. I mean, that's just that whole transparency thing again. This number 3 is real interesting. Okay, so the city of Austin is one of the most, I would say, Austin has a lot of money for their tree program. They have a lot of certified arborists over there. Okay, that community trees are real important to them, and they made a judgment decision that they don't have enough personnel to be going to every single phone call. And so they decided we're going to try this new kind of hybrid thing where you got public partnering with private in an unofficial way, where I get the phone calls. I have an Austin office too. I get a phone call in Austin. Okay, they say they probably have oak wilt. I go out there, I look at it. You know what? Brand new oak wilt center, started by a beetle. There's a form on the City of Austin website, and I tell them about it. And now they know they have a qualified, like, this isn't just a phone call. This is a oak wilt qualified expert saying he's identified, you know, a new oak wilt center kind of thing. Okay, I think that's very efficient. It may be a very good one for the Forest Service. So I can tell you, when you go and you look at these Forest Service agents, they're covering like 5 to 8 different counties. One person. That is like an insurmountable territory. There's just not enough money for as many Forest Service agents as we need. It's a straight up fact. Okay? But given that that's the current situation with the amount of budget and everything, you want to use their time most effectively. And I see them as macro foresters predominantly. And, you know, looking at this whole thing from that perspective, there are leaders in this, and I want to be their assistant. I want to help them, right? And so how can we collaborate better there? Okay, so on this allocation 50-50 on the spore producer, this is my most recent page, oak wilt fungal mats. Okay, this thing right here, 1992. This is the National Oak Wilt Symposium 92 document. Okay, on page 139. Okay, Forest Service was talking about how they're doing with their oak wilt suppression program. They talk about the trenches they put in, and they talk about the only other thing they cost share, which is the red oak removals, infected red oak removals, spore producing trees. So you've got overland spread and you've got underland spread, right? So the trench stops the underland, and then removing the infected tree before it forms fungal mats is overland spread prevention, okay? So those are the 2 things they put out money for. What is that? 1,190 diseased red oaks have been eliminated, okay? On my public information request page, okay, I did the last 4 years, okay? That number is 10 trees. First 4 years, 1,190. The last 4 years, 10 trees. So what I'm thinking is maybe it would behoove us to, because overland spread is a problem too. We need to look at trying to say, what is the appropriate budget? I don't care if the budget's $10. Question is, what's the ratio? What's the importance level? And I'm just gonna tell you, I see a heck of a lot of overland spread. It's not a minor thing. And these people up north, they know it too. So when I'm out on my 1,500 acre ranch where I've treated 3,331 trees one time for Oakville with an over 90% success rate, and I'm driving around on my gators and just paying attention to everything I could possibly see in my little research lab over there, okay? These red oaks are going down just like the live oaks. There's not a whole bunch of red oaks on this ranch left. They're getting it, they're dying, they're forming fungal mats. I got over 100 fungal mat photos on this website and more in my Google Photos account. I find them all the time. I've got videos of finding fungal mats growing up underneath hypoxyl and canker in July, late July. Okay, so there's a whole lot of stuff I found that isn't necessarily exactly correlative with some of the stuff I've learned. And so we need to look at that. But I mean, a picture don't lie. So that, I think that's a major component. We need to look at this this cost share of red oak removals and how many we're doing. But 2 or 3 a year, you just, I don't know if that's the right amount. I think it's unlikely that's the right amount. It looks like they were doing it more right in the first 4 years, and now they're not. So,
Kevin,
yeah.
a lot of those at the beginning, they were getting pushed over with bulldozers, and they didn't even count. Those had to be physical removals. So thousands were pushed over when they were bulldozing out the ovals.
Yeah, and so they were counting them, and they were assuming that those red oaks were gonna get it. So there was more of a recognition of the probability of grafting there. Another thing is the whole Rogan campaign is almost ceased to exist in practice. So that's another one of my issues there. So what they said in the 2007 document as far as their allocation of funding, 6% for infected red oak removal in urban areas. So they're predominantly looking at urban, suburban areas is where they want to do it, because you've got more homes, and then therefore more homes is more people, and more people would be benefited within a geographic area. Instead of like 1,500 acre ranch, you come in and you get rid of that infected red oak, and it's like you help that one property owner out. You know what I mean? So, but I don't believe 6% is gonna work. I don't think that's appropriate. I think 50-50 is more appropriate. So the amount of trenching we constantly are seeing in the data of like how many miles of trench that they've installed. Okay, but what I've not seen is the bragging about the red oak removals. I was able to get that information through public information requests, and I'll be doing more. I'm going to gather all the data from the years and see what kind of patterns are developing and who's actually doing these. But I think that transparency there is going to help us improve what we're doing. This is a video at the bottom here of the management page, courtesy of the ISA Texas chapter. This video was put together by the director, John Goodritis of the ISA Texas chapter. This is an absolutely inspirational video. I mean, it's pretty old school, okay? It was done a long time ago, back in the 80s and whatnot, but you can see the agri-life. You can see Dr. Apple when he was just starting out at A&M. You can see the Forest Service agents and how much passion they had when they first started fighting this disease. I believe that passion and that networking between our agencies, if it was revived to the same level, given the science that we have and the amount of science that our northern brothers and sisters have that's not making it down here, I know for a fact we're gonna come up with better results. I believe in the leaders. I believe there's maybe some passion that's been lost in this fight, because it's a demoralizing disease. But I deal with it every single day. And instead of choosing to let it bother me to the point where I give in, I am not gonna give in. I'm gonna fight harder. Because I see what happens when these ladies are like, dude, you saved my tree. And what that one tree meant to them. That has gotta be our inspiration. That has gotta be our motivation. And so that video is very, very inspiring. They talk about herbicide attempts in there too. Where am I on time? Am I at 15 minutes left?
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay. This 5 and 10 years post-suppression evaluations. In the first 5 years, the only data you're going to pick up on a post-suppression evaluation is whether or not you cut all the roots. Period. Okay, that's the facts. All right. There's a guy named Dan Wilson. You can read a whole bunch of this stuff in the 2007 symposium. Those symposium documents, by the way, are on the TexasOakwood.org website under professional literature. So you can read this stuff. I mean, we're talking hundreds of pages, but you can read this stuff. And he's got some very important, interesting things to say about trenching and regrafting. Okay? In year 5 through 10, that's when I want to know how long is this trench going to last. Because when you tell somebody you're going to get a 75% success rate, and then that customer who receives that recommendation to do a trench expects that it's going to be the same results in 5 years, it's going to be the same result in 10 years, same result in 15 years, and it's not, then there's false expectations or a lack of communication of the totality of what's going on here being not communicated to the public. And I don't believe that's appropriate. I believe you need to provide the full spectrum of expectations to these people. And if they would prefer to kill all these trees inside their trench with herbicide as opposed to have to bring that machine back out to do a secondary trench, I think they should have the right to make that decision. But they're expecting the knowledge and options to be given to them by us. So I've got that information all there on the management page, linked to the specific sections and quotes from that, Dr. Dan Wilson. I mean, just real briefly on this resistance. So I'm not the predominant one who's doing the lab tests. I've kind of speculated. Now, I have done enough testing to basically equal the amount of testing, for example, Dr. Apple did on California oaks. Dr. Apple grew oaks from California, gave them oak wilt to see whether they would die or not die. Okay, that's on my resistance page. Very good study. But he did like 20 trees per species or so. Okay, well, between me and Karen Rockoff, we probably treated anywhere from 50 to 100 of all these Mexican white oaks, post oaks, chinkapin, bigelow, shin, Durin, all of them. We treated all the white oaks that grow here that are getting planted here. Okay? I just got to say, they're not doing good if you don't give them fungicide. You test them, you find them get oak wilt, they're not doing good. They either completely die or they die to such a degree the customer's just going to want to cut it down. Okay? So that's important information. And people's expectations need to be appropriate when they come to a purchase decision when we're talking about millions and millions of dollars of trees getting grown in a nursery with certain expectations. It may not be accurate. So without inoculative studies being done where you actually give them 20 Mexican white oaks over at A&M, for example, you go with field observations. Okay, and you do samples on those trees. Well, me and her have already done this. And we've been doing it for years. And we're seeing consistency of pattern. She and I can look at, we've seen so many foliar leaf symptoms from these white oaks, we've already classified them. So if you hear like, hey, the chinkapin doesn't have certain oak wilt symptoms, that's not true. What's true is if you see it enough and you test it and you start to see the patterns, and you can identify a chinkapin with oak wilt. You can identify a bur oak with oak wilt. They'd all have symptoms. And me and her know what they look like. She has spent more time and energy on the testing. I've really focused on the treatment. I'm real big on treating these white oaks. Okay, so this 3,331 6-year treatment project where I've been treating trees one time, over 90% success rate. I'm somewhere between 500 and 750, somewhere in that range of white oaks. Okay, his post oaks are getting it, his shin oaks are getting it, his Durand oaks are getting it. He had a like 20-acre canyon of lacy oaks and they got it. So I'm seeing a heck of a lot of patterns going on. And I've got on identifying the symptoms. You want to see a plethora of pictures of these white oak species and what their foliar symptoms look like. When you start looking at all those, you'll be like, yeah, there is a distinguishable pattern here. We actually could put some of those on the texasoakwilt.org website to help people identify who might want to save the tree. Because what I found is most of my customers, they like the white oaks as much as they do the live oak. They don't want it to die from oak wilt. If they're like, hey, I think maybe it has it, I go over there, I'm like, yeah, looks like it's got it. They're like, well, we want to treat it. But if you don't know what you're looking for, you can't identify that it's got oak wilt and then provide a treatment service for it, right? I'm not going to get into the specifics, but the U.S. Forest Service is engaged right now in a white oak wilt study of some kind. And we'll find out more about it as, I guess, scientists, they start revealing stuff later on. Okay? But U.S. Forest Service personnel is actually engaging in starting this. I find it very, very interesting. Might have something to do with bur oaks. By the way, bur oaks, we've known since 1970, they form fungal mats. So even though it says only red oaks form fungal mats, there are studies by U.S. foresters and multiple universities in the northern states proving that they've actually found growing, active, viable, infectious fungal mats on Quercus alba and Quercus macrocarpa. And then I just want to, I guess, there's so much more I just did a real fast one, but I want to open this up for any sort of constructive feedback. I'm good with constructive feedback. I want to engage people, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Sir.
Howdy, I'm Johnny Severe out of New Braunfels, and my question is there currently a map that shows the several counties around and near Austin that would show the areas where oak wilt has been confirmed in the trees? Because I checked in a couple of months ago.
On my website, in that oak wilt menu, one of the last pages is my oak wilt maps. Okay? You can find a map of pretty much every oak wilt center up till like 2017 or 2018 that's been quantified by the Austin arborists there. And there's a whole bunch of other cities with maps there. As far as New Braunfels or San Marcos, I don't believe I have those maps there yet, but again, coming from a macro standpoint of what a forester could be doing, I envision them going out and creating maps and looking at those maps every single year for all the major municipalities. I believe that's what they should spend a lot of their time on, because it's a very valuable resource.
What do we do to literally get New Braunfels on the map? Because I checked in with a biologist for Robert Edmondson, and he was aware of oak wilt in New Braunfels. And I believe
My experience is that when you contact, so for example, Aaron Davis works in a lot of the canons that I work in, okay? And I have strongly recommended to cities and neighborhoods for them to contact her. And she has been very prompt and extremely effective at giving them a very pretty map where she identifies where there's oak wilt, okay? How to improve that is to say, Aaron doesn't see everything that we see. So if Aaron or whoever your forester is got maybe the main players in oak wilt treatments and say, where have you seen oak wilt that maybe I'm missing it or I can't see it from the roadway, you know what I mean? And I think we could create awesome, very accurate maps that could be easily updated. But yeah, it's gonna take grassroots efforts.
So the contact person, if I wanted to just get right on top of it and get New Braunfels and other communities and counties on the map, oak wilt location wise,
Is the
contact her?
arborist from New Braunfels here?
I am.
No, I mean city arborist.
Yes, sir.
So this gentleman right here, he just got certified as an arborist, and he's going to be doing things the right way, I can tell you. So you're going to want to have a chit chat with him, and I'm sure that something like that could happen.
Great. Well, I'll follow through on it.
Yeah. Anything else?
Hey, Kevin, you scrolled through I saw it through the cycle, map cycle. Can you bring that up? You were talking about, because white oaks, that is, you know what I'm talking about, right?
The cycle?
The cycle, the disease cycle. You scrolled through it earlier, right?
Okay,
You were talking
you're
about white
in
oaks.
this thing right here.
You have you know the one that everybody sees with the trees and the beetles and the root grafting and. Yeah. Probably back towards the top there, I think.
Oh, look here, mats can form on white and bur oak. So that's where the eastern states are at, just so, you know, you see, like, in print.
Right there. So, though, is that the same? Yeah, there it is. See where they're using a white oak as an example there because they talk about the discoloration of the vascular tissue on the bottom right there, and the streaking. So they're talking about white oaks in that particular.
The red oaks will streak too sometimes.
Sometimes, well, but the leaf that's not the same map I just saw, but anyway.
And those leaves there are the northern red oak.
But they do have one that shows a white oak leaf on the map, on that cycle too, on one of those. Anyway, okay. I just wanted to point that out for you.
Any other questions, constructive criticism?
One more, not criticism, but ID thing. When we say red oak, does that include the hybrid Schumard oak or?
As of yet, there's been no red oak family member that's been proven to not be highly susceptible, okay? So the Forest Service has said all red oak family, okay? As far as the inoculative study test, you know, I've seen Canby and Chisos red oak that people are planting that aren't native here. I've seen them go down really, really, really fast, okay? The blackjacks do, the Texas red oak, the Spanish red oak, southern red oak. I've actually seen water oaks in Pleasanton and places where water oaks can grow. They torch really, really fast too. Is there a possibility there's a red oak species that doesn't torch immediately and form fungal mats? Maybe. I mean, probably not, but
Those Schumarts are really plentiful in New Braunfels.
I've got a whole bunch of photos of Schumarts with it, and yeah, they die real fast.
Thank
They
you.
form fungal mats.
I'm real interested in the root grafting. You dug a lot deeper into the studies and stuff. Is there a lot of studies out there in regards to root grafting between species? I know some of the protocol said something about how prolific.
The northern states don't have motte-forming trees like we do here. We do have a unique area, okay? Now, they assume root grass between red oaks up there, okay? Their red to white is not a frequently common occurrence up there, okay? But again, they're not motte-forming. I mean, when you look at our Spanish red oaks that are native here, it's just a whole bunch of trees coming up from a root system. Same dang thing with the shin oak and same thing with the lacy oak. And, you know, obviously the live oak, but they're all motte forming and, you know, their roots are definitely in close proximity because of their soil type predominantly, you know, the clay, highly compacted soil with rock and, you know, so they're gonna be in a very thin horizon crisscrossing and, yeah, the established native ones, this sometimes they graft. No, not accurate at all. And I don't see that this 1,500 acres. I monitor oak wilt, and I have for years on hundreds and hundreds of acres. Okay, I got a lot of big customers, and I keep going back and treating more and more trees that are high value on their properties. And I just see a completely unprejudiced disease taking down oak trees. Okay, 30 to 40% of the post oaks are going to get it from root graft. And yeah, they may take 5 to 8 years to die, but they will die too. But you know what happens real quick when you treat it with fungicide, when you see them impacted? They recover and all of a sudden they start getting better. So treatment on post oaks can be very effective. It's with all the other oaks, the white oaks.
You mentioned that the U.S. Forest Service had done some successful secluding of oak wilt centers with nothing but herbicide.
Yeah.
But what exactly do you mean?
What they're doing is they're taking triclopyr, they're doing a girdle around the tree. Okay, they're spraying triclopyr, or Garlon 4 is the name of the product. They're spraying that in there, and they're doing it according to the Brune model, which says certain soil type, you go a certain distance out, and they're killing the healthy trees around the infected trees, killing the root system, and there's no longer ability for the disease to move through the dead root systems outside of it. Okay, what I'm doing here is a pasture improvement project, is what I call it. So I've done like 20 of these. Okay, and I can tell you 100% that these unwanted trees my customers have, these trees are dying, like whole root system dead, no sprouts. 4 or 5 years later, no sprouts out of these root systems. So I found a different product that can 100% guarantee kill a oak root system. Our live oaks are different than their red oaks though, okay? So Garlon won't work. Picloram, triclopyr, picloram, glyphosate, none of those will work. I can almost guarantee you. They don't have the, what this other product I'm using has. They'll kill a red oak real easy, because red oaks have got different, you know, cellular structure and vascular system. That's why they die so fast from oak wilt. I think my time's about up though, right?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Right.
All right, we'll give Kevin a warm welcome. All right, so